sesuatu yang benar, maka kita memiliki keyakinan.
When you talk about sadhana, like believing is one thing, and we have confidence towards that. That's also a part of sadhana.
Jadi mempercayai adalah salah satu bagian dari keyakinan itu, dan kepercayaan diri pada hal yang kita percayai itu juga satu hal lainnya.
In the world you can simply believe something.
Jadi di dunia kita bisa hanya sekedar percaya pada sesuatu.
But after analyzing and studying it, you have confidence that is true. These two are very different.
Jadi ketika kita menganalisanya dan mempelajarinya, kemudian kita mempunyai kepercayaan diri pada hal tersebut. Itu adalah dua hal yang berbeda.
So after studying, after analyzing, if you have confidence, mean like this is exactly correct. That's why I am believing it.
Jadi ketika kita sudah mempelajari dan menganalisanya, kita mempunyai kepercayaan bahwa ini adalah sesuatu hal yang benar, makanya kita yakin kalau ini adalah benar.
As example, like if you train any kind of thing many years, then you are capable of it. Then you have confidence about that. Then even you can recommend yourself. I know this. I know the subject. I have worked in this subject. I have confidence about my quality. So in this way we have confidence about something.
Jadi contohnya ketika kita melatih sesuatu bertahun-tahun, jadi kita yakin kalau kita mampu melakukan hal tersebut, dan bahkan bisa memuji diri sendiri bahwa kita mampu untuk melakukannya karena kita sudah melatihnya.
So in this way, like having confidence about the Buddhist teaching is different.
Jadi mempunyai kepercayaan diri kepada ajaran Buddha adalah hal yang berbeda.
So in this way, when you start to study deeply, you start to analyze, then when you get confidence, then no matter who come to you and ask you to change your belief, you're not going to believe. You are not going to change it.
Jadi ketika kita mempelajarinya lebih dalam dan menganalisanya dan meyakini bahwa ini adalah hal yang benar, siapapun yang menyuruh Anda untuk mengubah keyakinan Anda tidak akan mengubahnya.
So this is how what happened to Surambata.
Jadi inilah yang terjadi pada Surambata.
Because he realized that.
Karena dia menyadari bahwa itu adalah kebenaran.
After realizing the truth, he doesn't pay attention to the outside.
Jadi ketika dia menyadari kebenaran itu sendiri, dia tidak memperhatikan eksternal.
So he didn't pay attention to the Buddha appearance like that, but still he pay attention to the content.
Jadi dia tidak memperhatikan penampilan Buddha, tapi dia melihat dari isinya.
Because he know this is exactly true. He realized it, he understood it. So that realization cannot change.
Jadi dia tahu ini adalah kebenaran karena dia menyadari itu sendiri, dan penyadaran itu tidak bisa berubah.
So the same way when you study Dhamma, try to analyze it, try your best to check is it true or false all the time. Don't blind follow.
Jadi ketika kita mempelajari Dhamma juga kita perlu terus menganalisanya dan mempelajari lebih dalam apakah ini benar atau salah. Jadi jangan percaya buta.
Then you start to see your hindrances are decreasing.
Dan kalian akan melihat bahwa halangan batin kalian akan berkurang.
Because when you start to analyze Dhamma deeply, then you can recognize all the defining ones inside your mind, and gradually you can decrease it.
Jadi ketika kita mempelajari Dhamma lebih dalam, kita akan semakin bisa menyadari kekotoran batin yang muncul dan akan bisa menguranginya.
Sometimes when you start to study Dhamma, then you start to see how practically it is, how it really working. Then naturally we feel like follow that, and then we are not giving opportunity unwholesome thought to arise inside our mind.
Jadi ketika kita semakin mempelajari Dhamma lebih dalam, kita akan semakin tahu bagaimana cara bekerjanya, dan kita tidak akan membiarkan pikiran buruk muncul.
So all these things have to develop concentration.
Dan semua hal ini bisa melatih, mengembangkan konsentrasi.
And then concentration course have to do all the vipassana and then attend concentration.
Dan konsentrasi membantu kita untuk berlatih vipassana dan mencapai magga phala.
Okay, then how to maintain faith to Sangha.
Dan bagaimana cara mempertahankan keyakinan pada Sangha?
So sometimes people say, but it's easy to maintain faith towards Buddha and Dhamma, but it's hard to maintain faith towards Sangha.
Kadang orang bilang bisa mempertahankan keyakinan pada Buddha dan Dhamma, tapi bagaimana cara mempertahankan keyakinan pada Sangha?
Because why? Nowadays, when you look at monks, we simply believe like they are the disciple of the Sangha, Buddha, and like sometimes people feel like we really don't need to have a faith about them because they are people also start to see them inside their mind, right?
Jadi mereka mempunyai keyakinan pada Sangha hanya dengan berpikir bahwa ini adalah murid-murid Buddha, tapi ketika mereka melihat ternyata Sangha juga masih ada kekotoran batin, jadi itu membuat mereka agak susah mempunyai keyakinan pada Sangha.
But the Buddhist teaching explaining like those who train their life, train their mind. By training their mind, they can attain path and portion. They are the people we can call like real Sangha.
Jadi orang yang melatih batinnya itu bisa mencapai Maggaphala. Jadi itu adalah yang kita sebut sebagai Sangha yang sesungguhnya.
Like as example, like let's say when you talk about lady devotees, right? You also like when you ask what is the perfect lady devotee's qualities, then you also can explain like the perfect lady devotees, they also not do any unwholesome thing, like they also not break their Panchasila, they also try to develop the qualities in this way you can explain, right?
Jadi ketika misalnya kita lihat contoh sebagai umat awam, kalian bisa bertanya bagaimanakah umat awam yang sempurna, dan kalian mampu menjelaskan bahwa umat awam yang sempurna adalah tidak melakukan hal-hal yang buruk dan tidak melanggar Pancasila.
So, like as a like all of you also you are trained, you also want to be like this, right?
Dan kalian semua berlatih untuk menjadi seperti itu.
Actually, like if someone is really like perfect lady devotee level, you can say like Anagami level.
Can say what?
Anagami level. Anagami.
Oh, Anagami. Oh, kalau umat awam yang sempurna itu kita bisa bilang bahwa itu adalah Anagami.
Because why? Like until someone come to until someone attain Anagami level. Even Anagami people also they can live in the society.
Jadi sampai level Anagami itu mereka masih bisa hidup di masyarakat.
I mean like this way, like if someone want to develop the qualities, I just want to say, right? If someone want to develop a quality as a lay person also, there are a lot of qualities they can develop, and they can be someone like can be a role model, right?
Jadi sebagai umat awam kita bisa melatih kualitas-kualitas yang kemudian bisa menjadi contoh bagi yang lainnya.
So when you look at the Sangha also same. Sangha also like a lot of monks they are trying, they are struggling. So now like nowadays we can see like a lot of monks they are struggling to be a prophet, but still they have some weakness.
Jadi kalau kita melihat Sangha itu juga sama ya, karena mereka juga masih berlatih dan berusaha, dan tapi tentunya mereka juga mempunyai kelemahan.
So because of that, sometimes when you start to see weakness, you feel like why you need to have faith about them.
Jadi ketika kadang kita melihat ada kelemahan dari Sangha tersebut, jadi kita berpikir kenapa kita perlu memiliki keyakinan terhadap mereka.
But when you look at the qualities, what they develop, and if someone attain their perfect level, what kind of qualities they have, then when you start to see that, then we have faith about them.
Jadi kita belajar untuk melihat kualitas yang berusaha mereka kembangkan, dan ketika mereka mencapai level yang sempurna, kualitas apa yang mereka miliki, dengan begitu keyakinan akan muncul.
So like when someone as a monk, when they start to develop their qualities, they are not only one day, not only 2 days, but they are trying to develop their qualities whole life.
Jadi sebagai biku itu mereka tidak mengembangkan kualitas hanya 1-2 hari, tapi sepanjang hidup mereka.
And they are trying to identify their weakness all the time.
Dan mereka mencoba mengidentifikasi kelemahan mereka sepanjang waktu.
Even though they have also they also have charisma, but still they are trying to improve themselves.
Walaupun mereka masih mempunyai kekotoran batin, mereka tetap berusaha untuk meningkatkan diri mereka.
And gradually, when they develop their qualities, then they also change themselves.
Kemudian secara bertahap ketika mereka melatih kualitas-kualitas tersebut, mereka akan berubah.
So that's how they could attain a part-time pursha.
Dengan begitu, bagaimana mereka bisa mencapai magga phala.
Like when you look at the Buddhist teaching, Buddhist book, ancient Buddhist book, they are talking about Sariputta, Moggallana, Rahula, and this is a lot of Arahant. We are talking Dharma explaining about a lot of Arahant.
Jadi di Tipitaka menjelaskan banyak arahat seperti Bante Sariputta, Bante Moggallana, Bante Rahula.
Will they attain enlightenment within a day?
Apakah mereka mencapai pencerahan dalam 1 hari?
But no, I mean like they train themselves many years, many ions.
Tidak, tapi mereka sudah melatih diri mereka bertahun-tahun, berkalpa-kalpa.
After developing their qualities gradually, then finally they could come to that level.
Karena melatih kualitas-kualitas tersebut secara bertahap, pada akhirnya baru mereka mencapai pencerahan.
Right? When you look at that perfect level of Sangha, there are a lot of qualities.
Ketika kita melihat level sempurna dari Sangha itu sangat banyak kualitas.
And even today, if you see any monk, most monk, they are trying their best.
Sangat banyak biku mencoba yang terbaik.
And when you start to analyze, try to understand this, then we start to see that we have faith to Sangha.
Jadi ketika kita berusaha menganalisa ini, kita mulai ada keyakinan pada Sangha.
So in this way, like when we have faith towards the Buddha disciple.
Jadi ketika kita mempunyai keyakinan pada murid Buddha,
and then it also helps us to develop the faith also, develop the quality of faith.
Jadi itu juga membantu kita untuk mengembangkan kualitas keyakinan tersebut.
So in this way, when you start to have a faith about the Buddha Dhamma Sangha as well as karma, then it will help to decrease our hindrances.
Jadi ketika kita mencoba mengembangkan keyakinan kita pada Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, dan Karma, itu akan membantu kita mengurangi halangan-halangan batin di pikiran kita.
When you talk about faith, there's one example related to faith. That example is like, it says the universal monarch. He has a special gem.
Jadi ada satu contoh yang berkaitan dengan keyakinan. Jadi Raja Cakrawati itu memiliki satu permata.
So when if there's a muddy water, if someone put that special gem into that muddy water, all the dirty go down and the water become crystal clear.
Jadi ketika ada air yang berlumpur dan diletakkan permata spesial ini, maka air tersebut akan langsung bersih.
And it's in the same way when someone faith start to increase, then all the hindrances go down and the mind becomes very clear.
Jadi sama juga seperti keyakinan, ketika halangan-halangan batin itu berkurang, maka pikiran kita akan menjadi semakin murni.
When the sadha increase, it has power to decrease, overcome all the defilement.
Jadi ketika keyakinan kita semakin meningkat, itu mempunyai kemampuan untuk menekan atau mengurangi kekotoran batin kita.
And it support to develop samadhi.
Dan itu mendukung untuk mengembangkan konsentrasi.
Then samadhi help to develop vipassana.
Dan konsentrasi untuk mengembangkan vipassana.
Then the vipassana help to attain nibbana.
Dan vipassana membantu untuk mencapai nibbana.
So this is the importance of understanding our sadhana.
Jadi ini pentingnya untuk memahami keyakinan kita.
So then, like when the time in this way, if you can develop our faith every day, then it will definitely it will help all of us to attain final realization of Nibbana.
Jadi kalau kita terus secara bertahap setiap hari mengembangkan keyakinan kita, itu akan membantu kita untuk mencapai Nibbana.
So if you have any question, you can ask.
Jadi kalau ada pertanyaan, silakan.
You are feel free to ask. Then we can discuss.
Ya.
Saya mau tanya gila. Bisa banget ya?
Hmm?
Saya dengar ya?
Kedengaran.
Iya. Kita tahu itu Samanera Siwali. Beliau mencapai arahat pada umur 7 tahun. Dan satu lagi Samanera Rahmula di umur 18 tahun. Terus pertanyaannya itu apakah begitu mencapai tingkatan arahat beliau langsung ditahbis menjadi biku atau menunggu sampai umur 20 tahun?
So the question is, Samanera Siwali attained Arhat at 7 years old and Samanera Rahula at 18 years old. So the question is, do they getting the higher ordination after attain Arhanship or need to wait until 20?
Yeah, when it comes to Vinayapitaka, right? After the Buddha gave only high ordination. Buddha he himself gave high ordination to few of Samanera when they were around 7 years old, right? If I'm not mistaken, only 3 or 4. Only 3. Except them, doesn't matter. Everybody, every Samanera, even though they attend Arhamship, they have to wait until they become 20.
Jadi kalau di Winaya Pitaka itu cuma menjelaskan ada 3 Samanera yang ditahbiskan sebelum umur 20. Selain itu harus ikut aturan.
Because like Vinaya Pitaka mainly mention about like when someone become 20 years old, then they have ability to get a decision, do some work, all these things. And lower than 20 years old people they consider like suicide, so they are not really ready to take the responsibility.
Jadi di Winaya dijelaskan bahwa orang yang berumur 20 tahun itu lebih ada kemampuan untuk mengambil keputusan sendiri. Kalau yang di bawah itu masih dianggap seperti anak-anak dan belum terlalu sanggup untuk bertanggung jawab.
Of course, right? I mean, you can after they become 7 years old, they can take any kind of responsibility and do whatever thing because their mind already mature.
Dan kalau untuk seorang arahat ya tentunya mereka sudah bisa mengambil tanggung jawab karena pikirannya sudah dewasa.
But sometimes, like some they claim they already arahat, but they're not really arahat.
Tetapi kadang orang hanya mengklaim kok mereka adalah seorang arahat, tapi ternyata bukan.
So can you imagine if someone not attend arahat, and then as he simply say, I become arahat, then if we let him to take that responsibility, like what the bhikkhu need to take, then it can create some chaos in the sasana.
Jadi kalau kita mempercayai orang tersebut yang mengklaim sudah menjadi arahat, tapi ternyata kenyataannya dia tidak bisa mengambil tanggung jawab, itu akan menyebabkan kekacauan di sasana.
So this is the reason Buddha make clearly draw a line. Doesn't matter you are Arya or not. If you want to attend get high ordination, before ordination, you need to wait until 20.
Jadi kenapa Buddha menggambarkan garis yang sangat jelas kalau kita mau mencapai untuk mau ditabis sebagai biku, terlepas kamu Arya atau bukan, itu tetap harus minimal usia 20.
Yeah, is it
Udah jelas?
Jadi kesimpulannya Bante Siwali dan Bante
Rahula.
Rahula ditabiskan di umur 20 ya.
So the conclusion is Samanera Siwali and Samanera Rahula get higher ordination on age 20. Bante? Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Kalau nggak salah ingat, iya.
Because it mentioned like there's one Bante called Kumar Kashyap. Bante Kumar Kashyapa, he got high ordination, big ordination after, because Buddha asked some question when he was 7 years old. After he replied, then Buddha said like from today, like Buddha gave high ordination. Buddha himself gave high ordination.
Jadi Bante Kumara Kasapa itu Buddha memberikan pertanyaan kepada beliau dan kemudian Buddha menabiskannya menjadi biku.
And then another one is Sopaka.
Jadi yang lain adalah Sopaka.
And then there's another one called Sumana Samanera.
Dan yang lain namanya Sumana Samanera.
He was Bante Moggallana attendant monk.
Dia adalah pengikut Bante Moggallana.
And it say he helped when his teacher was sick. He had to bring some water from far away, and then he did a lot of like psychic power. He had a lot of psychic power. Also, he was Arahant already. But then, because of that, Buddha gave high ordination to him.
Jadi ceritanya gurunya itu sakit, jadi Bante ini Samanera ini membantu gurunya membawakan air dari jauh dan kemudian dia menunjukkan banyak abinya. Jadi karena itu Buddha menabiskannya menjadi biku.
So these three of some, and then when they were 7 years old, they got biku, higher ordination by the Buddha as a special treatment.
Jadi 3 Samanera ini ditabiskan menjadi biku di usia 7 tahun sebagai perlakuan yang spesial dari Buddha. Ada lagi?
Kalau terkait dengan sadha atau keyakinan, kita diajarkan untuk menggunakan logika. Tetapi kalau kita belajar dari kisah-kisah di kitab suci itu banyak hal-hal yang tidak masuk akal. Misalnya ketika kelahiran Siddhartha itu, ibunya secara berdiri lahir kemudian 7 langkah. Kalau sekarang kita salah tidak masuk akal itu. Kemudian juga misalnya di kisah Wesantara Jataka itu, Bodhisatta mempersembahkan anak istrinya kepada Brahman. Nah, kalau Dewa itu merupakan sebuah mungkin tidak tanggung jawab atau KDRT gitu, mempersembahkan kepada orang lain anak istrinya. Bagaimana kita menyikapi hal semacam itu? Jadi itu untuk kita membangun sadar kita terhadap ajaran Buddha. Karena banyak kisah-kisah yang mungkin tidak masuk akal kalau kita begitu.
So related to Sada, he said that we need to develop Sada by logic. But in Tipitaka, many story is out of logic. For example, the first one. Tadi cerita yang pertama apa?
Yang kelahiran
When Bodhisatta born and on the last birth, the mother is stand up and give birth to him, and then he walk for 7 times. So it's out of logic if we understand from his current condition. And also the Wesantara Jakarta, he offered the kids and wife. And then nowadays people will think that it's kind of domestic abuse.
This is really a good question.
Ini adalah pertanyaan yang bagus.
Okay. So the thing is, like sometimes when we develop our understanding in different level in our life, we're not really ready to believe some kind of thing. Because sometimes we feel this is not really logic, right? Then it's okay not to believe it. It's okay not to believe. Because we all time we have to understand, like, even though I don't have faith about this, I'm not going to believe. But still we need to keep a space. Even one day if I understood, if I really feel this is correct, I'm going to accept.
Jadi ketika kita mulai mempelajari sesuatu dan memahaminya, kita boleh tidak mempercayai sesuatu yang tidak sesuai logika, tapi kita perlu memberikan ruang ketika suatu hari kita memahami lebih dalam dan ini ternyata benar, kita perlu menerimanya.
Like as example, like sometimes when we see someone, a very rich person, he gave up all the kingdom. King, he gave up all the kingdom and he get ordained. Sometimes we don't see any logic there.
Dan misalnya seperti raja yang melepaskan semua kerajaannya dan menjadi pertapa, itu buat kita tidak masuk akal.
Then we feel like, what's the use of that? Sometimes we feel like, what's the point of that, right?
Kadang kita berpikir apa tujuannya dari itu.
And also, let's say, another thing. Someone already about to get married. Then, that time, the person he went to listen to the Dhamma, then he become anagami. Then he doesn't want to follow that process. He feel like so bad, right?
Jadi seperti ada orang yang mau menikah tapi kemudian dia mendengarkan Dhammatalk dan mencapai anagami, dia udah nggak mau lagi untuk menikah gitu, dan kita akan berpikir itu sesuatu yang buruk.
All the society enables and everybody blame.
Dan masyarakat akan menyalahkan dia.
So in the same way, like there are some people in the world, they have a special ability.
Jadi beberapa orang di dunia itu mempunyai kemampuan yang spesial.
Okay, let's say, there are some, if you check the Guinness record, there are some things you can see it's not possible to happen but already happened.
Dan ketika kita lihat rekor dunia itu banyak yang tidak masuk akal tapi itu terjadi.
Like there are some, if you check, there are something you can see, like within 12 years they could do their PhD and do two PhD and learn all the dictionaries and everything within 12 years old. Is it possible?
In 12 years old.
Yeah?
In 12 years old.
Within 12 years old.
20.
When someone is 12 years old, they do two PhD and they remember all the dictionaries and all these things. Do you think people can do that?
Ketika seseorang baru berumur 12 tahun tapi mempunyai 2 PhD itu S3 itu, apakah kalian pikir itu mungkin?
But now if you check Guinness World Record, you can see.
Tapi di rekor dunia itu ada.
And how?
Jadi bagaimana?
So they say there are some special cases.
Jadi ada kasus-kasus spesial.
Then comes the Buddha. He's not a simple one. He protect, he learn, he improves his qualities and all the things, many years. So because of that, in the time he born, he has that power, ability. But still, if you don't want to believe, just keep it away.
Dan ketika tentang Buddha itu bukan sesuatu yang sederhana karena beliau sudah berlatih sekian lama, makanya mempunyai kemampuan itu dan ketika lahir bisa berjalan. Tapi kalau masih belum bisa percaya itu nggak apa-apa.
At the same time, like let's say, when you talk about renunciation, letting go part, the Vesantara Jataka story, that time, the Bodhisattva also, he already trained that dana into highest level.
Jadi di Vesantara Jataka, Bodhisattva sudah melatih dana di level yang tinggi.
At the same time that when you look at the Jali and Krishna, Italian Kusangila, I mean like his son and daughter.
Dan kemudian ketika melihat kepada istri dan anaknya,
So these two also, when it is mentioned like when father donated the two kids to others, and the father mentioned, I'm doing this for me to attain enlightenment, to attain some Buddha.
jadi ketika dia mendanakan kedua anaknya, dia berbicara bahwa dia mendanakan anaknya ini untuk mencapai pencerahan.
At that time, what the two kids also mentioned, they also say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Dan disebutkan bahwa kedua anaknya menyebutkan sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And may this help both of us to get ordained in your sasana and attain enlightenment.
Dan kedua anaknya beraspirasi bahwa semoga ini juga membuat kita bisa menjadi pertapa di ajaranmu dan mencapai pencerahan.
Then, because why? They also, say 100,000 ions, they also training their mind.
Karena selama 100.000 kalpa mereka juga melatih pikiran mereka.
So, like this,
Jadi seperti itu.
I remember, I can give you one example. One time I met, when we were, that time we just ordained, I met 12 years old boy. He came to ordain.
Jadi ada satu contoh ketika Bante baru ditabiskan, ada anak laki-laki berusia 12 tahun.
Actually, in his family also, his parents had some issues, like parents, they were toxic.
Orang tuanya adalah orang tua yang toksik.
Then finally he decided to get ordained.
Jadi anak ini memutuskan untuk menjadi petapa.
As you know, that 12 years old is not so much, right?
Not so much.
Like 12 years old boy mean like not very old, like doesn't have much experience, right?
Anak umur 12 tahun masih belum banyak pengalaman.
Then someone asks, with this age, why you want to get ordination?
Jadi orang bertanya, pada usia segini kenapa kamu mau ditabiskan?
Then you know what the kid he replied to the monk. Bante, don't you think that someone in this my age also don't feel suffering?
Jadi anak ini bilang kepada biku tersebut adalah, Bante, apakah kamu berpikir bahwa anak umur segini ini tidak mengalami penderitaan?
Don't you think someone like me also need to think like someone like myself also should overcome the suffering?
Apakah kamu berpikir bahwa saya umur segini ini juga perlu mengatasi penderitaan?
Then the monk keeps quiet, right? Senior monk keeps quiet.
Dan bantenya terdiam.
Nothing to say.
Nggak ada yang bisa dikatakan.
So in this way, like sometimes in the normal society, right? Sometimes we start to think like in the world, like this must be like this, that must be like this, right? But sometimes when you go to reality, it's different.
Jadi di masyarakat pada umumnya kita sudah memiliki standar kalau ini harus begini, itu harus begitu. Tapi kadang pada realitanya itu berbeda.
So it's okay if you cannot believe it, just keep it one side.
Dan ya kalau kamu nggak bisa percaya itu nggak apa-apa, ditepikan aja.
Like if you ask me, Bante, do you believe all the Buddhist teaching and all everywhere? I also say no, right?
Dan ketika Anda nanya ke Bante, apakah Bante mempercayai semua ajaran Buddha, Bante juga bisa bilang tidak.
Because why? First thing is I never read all.
Pertama karena Bante belum baca semuanya.
Then without reading, how I'm going to analyze or understand?
Tanpa membacanya, bagaimana menganalisa dan memahaminya?
And then not like that. That's something still I not deeply analyze. So sometimes I feel like it's still a question like is it right or wrong, right or wrong. Still I also question.
Jadi sesuatu yang belum dianalisa lebih dalam juga Bante masih bisa bertanya-tanya apakah ini benar atau salah.
So if one day if I feel right, correct, then I also have confidence about that teaching.
Jadi ketika suatu hari Bante merasa ini sesuatu yang benar, maka Bante ada keyakinan bahwa ini adalah benar.
So, like, no, this is the reason the Buddhist teaching say, like, Buddhist teaching have a quality called ehipasiko.
Jadi ajaran Buddha ada kualitas yang namanya ehipasiko.
So you can come and analyze and check.
Dan jadi kita bisa datang untuk menganalisa dan mengujinya.
If you feel this is right, it's suitable to believe, then you feel free to believe.
Jadi kalau kita merasa ini benar, maka kita bisa mempercayainya.
So when you start to train yourself like this, then gradually you start to see your faith increasing inside your mind.
Jadi ketika kita terus melatih diri kita seperti ini, kita akan melihat bahwa keyakinan kita meningkat.
Like you can see that even normal society, right? Sometimes when the kids, when they are start to mature, sometimes some kids they don't have faith about their parents.
Jadi ketika kita lihat di masyarakat pada umumnya, ketika anak-anak sudah mulai dewasa, mereka tidak ada keyakinan pada orang tuanya.
After some period later, when they become parents, sometimes they start to have faith about their parents, right?
Jadi setelah beberapa waktu ketika mereka yang menjadi orang tua, mereka mulai ada keyakinan pada orang tua mereka.
So they say like, you don't have to believe all the things.
Jadi
Sometimes you need to keep the space. If I feel this is correct one day if I will feel it, that day I'm going to believe.
Jadi kita tidak harus mempercayai semuanya, tetapi berikanlah ruang ketika suatu hari ini benar, maka kita mempercayainya.
Okay.
Sabda kan kita ketahui bahwa terminologinya kan yakin pada Buddha dan Madang Sana dan hukum karma. Sementara kan sabda sendiri kan salah satu faktor mental yang kalau orang berbuat baik kan dia selalu diikuti oleh 19 faktor mental yang lainnya. Pertanyaan saya, bagaimana kalau misalkan dia bukan beragama Buddha dan dia tidak yakin pada Buddha dan Madang Sana, tapi dia berbuat baik. Nah, waktu dia berbuat baik kan salah satu faktor mentalnya kan sadar kan di dia dalamnya. Apakah hanya mengandalkan mereka percaya bahwa ini perbuatan baik akan ada manfaatnya? Itu sudah dikatakan ada sadar gitu. Pertanyaan kedua,
Satu-satu ya. Satu-satu. So Bante, just now Bante mentioned that Sada is Sada to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and Karma, and also according to the Cetasika, Sada is arise in all wholesome mental. So if someone don't have the faith on Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, but they do the wholesome deed, is it also called as Sada?
Mainly that can arise because of karma.
Iya, bisa karena itu muncul karena keyakinan pada karma.
maksudnya misalnya dia bukan Buddhis, misalnya dia agama lain gitu, dan dia nggak percaya Buddha, Dhamma, dan Sangha ya. Tapi dia hanya tahu kan bahwa berbuat baik itu ada manfaatnya gitu loh.
Iya.
Hanya cukup dengan kayak gitu bisa dikatakan sebenarnya dia juga punya sadar saat itu gitu loh.
Oh, he said that is it enough if only that he knows that this is a good thing and he will get the result, although he is not Buddhist. Yes.
Because like when it comes to we cannot say Buddhist whole samsara. When it comes to the whole samsara, we cannot live as a Buddhist.
Kita tidak menjadi Buddhis di sepanjang samsara.
Even non-Buddhists, sometimes they have kind of belief. Even like let's say sometimes some Hinduism also, they talk about part of karma.
Ya, kadang di Hindu juga ada menjelaskan tentang karma.
I think like whatever, maybe this life they may not feel like to believe, but they're doing when they do good thing, they know when this one give good result to our life. This is also part of sadhana.
Ya, jadi ketika dia meyakini bahwa kebaikan yang dia lakukan dan dia akan mendapatkan hal yang baik, ini juga bagian dari sada.
So then, like when you combine with the right view, okay, then it recall samadhi, then the saddha become more strong.
Jadi ketika dikombinasikan dengan pandangan benar, maka keyakinannya akan lebih kuat.
So we cannot say like only Buddhists they have saddha.
Jadi kita nggak bisa bilang bahwa hanya Buddhis yang punya saddha.
So other also they have part of saddha. No, because this is we call cetasika, mind factor.
Ya, jadi yang lainnya juga bisa punya saddha karena ini kita sebut sebagai faktor mental.
Like let's say only if we make a statement like only Buddhists they have faith saddha, then again we can ask the question, right? Then does it mean like other those who not non-Buddhists can never arrive the saddha cetasika inside their mind?
Jadi ketika kalau misalnya kita ada pernyataan bahwa hanya Buddhis yang bisa punya saddha, jadi apakah yang lain yang bukan Buddhis ini tidak akan pernah bisa punya saddha?
And also when you look at the Buddhist teaching, if you feel when it comes to Buddhist teaching, mainly they are talking about like the principle of Buddhist teaching and also stories, right? Again, when you look at the Buddhist teaching, you can divide into like Buddhist principle, basic Buddhist teaching, and the stories and all these things. Sometimes most of the time we are trying to pay attention to the story, but we are not paying attention to the basic Buddhist principle.
Jadi di ajaran Buddha itu ada prinsip dasarnya dan juga ada ceritanya. Kadang kita hanya memperhatikan ceritanya dan tidak memperhatikan prinsip dasar dari ajaran Buddha itu sendiri.
So, like when you look at the Buddhist teaching, if you feel the basic Buddhist principles are correct, it's worth to keep faith on it.
Jadi ketika kita melihat ajaran Buddha dan kita melihat prinsip dasarnya ini benar, itu berharga untuk mempunyai keyakinan pada hal tersebut.
Like as example, like when you talk about Visantarajata, this Bodhisattva walk as soon as he born. These are part of the story and the information.
Jadi kalau kita lihat seperti yang Vesantara Jataka tadi, ketika Bodhisatta terlahir dan bisa berjalan itu hanya bagian dari cerita.
So this is the reason sometimes people say like this is not possible to happen, right? These are not really logic. But when you look at the basic Buddhist principle, when we analyze it, do we see any problem there?
Jadi kalau kita melihat ini tidak masuk akal, tidak sesuai dengan logika, tapi kalau ketika kita melihatnya dari sisi prinsip Buddha, ajaran Buddha, apakah ada yang salah dari ini?
So normally we don't see any issue about basic Buddhist principle, right?
Don't see what.
When you analyze, when you look at the basic Buddhist teaching, like basic Buddhist principle, we don't see any problem.
Oh, jadi ketika kita menganalisa prinsip dasar ajaran Buddha itu tidak ada masalahnya.
So sometimes if you have doubt about like the information and story, still you can keep one side because when you look at basic Buddhist principle, you don't see any problem.
Jadi ketika kita mempunyai keraguan pada ceritanya, kita bisa kesampingkan itu dan kita lihat pada prinsip ajaran Buddha itu sendiri.
So when it comes to a lot of belief in the world, when you look at the basic principles, then can you question that?
Jadi ketika kita melihat banyak kepercayaan di dunia dan kita melihat prinsip-prinsip dasarnya, apakah kita bisa mempertanyakan itu?
So this is when you start to see the difference, right?
Jadi kita mulai melihat perbedaannya di sini.
And then when the time of developing understanding about basic Buddhist principles, and then the teaching, then later on you can pay attention to the information and some stories.
Jadi ketika kita mulai menganalisa prinsip-prinsip ajaran Buddha, kita mulai bisa melihat cerita-ceritanya.
You know, like when it comes to like just attack the Buddhist teaching, most of the time they're not going to question the basic Buddhist principle. They always take the stories.
Ketika kita melihat orang menyerang ajaran Buddha, mereka tidak pernah menyerang prinsip dasarnya, mereka hanya menyerang ceritanya.
So sometimes when they question about the story, through the story, sometimes we also feel, of course, some stories cannot believe, right?
Jadi ketika mereka mempertanyakan ceritanya, kita juga akan berpikir bahwa bagian cerita itu nggak masuk akal.
But you can see that when they also criticize Buddhist teaching, they're not going to criticize the basic Buddhist principle.
Jadi ketika orang mengkritik ajaran Buddha, mereka tidak mengkritik prinsip dasarnya.
Because they cannot question.
Karena mereka tidak bisa mempertanyakannya.
Or maybe they cannot understand.
Atau mungkin mereka tidak bisa memahaminya.
But this is why they are taking some stories and they start questioning.
Karena itu mereka mengambil cerita dan mempertanyakannya.
So, this is the thing.
Ya itu. Masih ada lagi?
Sampai kalau perbuatan yang sering kita lakukan kan dikatakan sebagai ajina kama gitu. Bagaimana kalau dia melakukan satu kali perbuatan itu terus sering muncul dalam pikiran dia, apakah itu bisa dikatakan ajina kama?
So Bante, if we do something frequently, it can be ajina kama. So if he only do this thing one time, but he keep repeating in the mind, is it considered as ajina kama?
Okay, like it is not really ajina kama, right? But we are reminding them the good thing we have done in our life. Like it means like then you can say like this is rejoicing, right? Then the rejoicing part become ajina kama.
Itu nggak bisa disebut sebagai ajina kama, tapi kita mengingat kebaikan kita itu juga kusala, dan kita bermudita cita itu yang jadi ajina kamanya.
Like let's say when you look at the ajina kama mean like, let's say if someone do dana, they are doing whole life as a practice almost every day. Then it become ajina kama.
Kalau ajina kama itu kita berdana itu sepanjang hidup kita terus berdana, itu yang menjadi ajina kamanya, dilakukan terus.
It's something like habit.
Jadi itu seperti kebiasaan.
So yeah, when like someone reminding one thing which they have done almost every one day, let's say you have done some special meditation, now you are reminding almost every day. It means like you are not doing that meritorious thing almost every day, but you are reminding, keep on reminding it in your mind.
Jadi ketika kita mengingat kebajikan yang kita lakukan itu, kita tidak setiap hari melakukan kebajikan tersebut, tapi kita hanya mengingat kembali.
Of course, doing that almost a very wonderful thing.
Ya, ketika mengingat kebajikan yang kita lakukan itu juga hal yang luar biasa.
Yeah, if we cannot do if we cannot do some special good thing almost every day, but still it's good to remind again and again.
Jadi ketika kita tidak bisa melakukan kebajikan yang spesial setiap harinya, ketika mengingatnya itu juga bagus.
Banyak kisah tentang Mara itu kan. Sebetulnya Mara itu siapa sih gitu? Kenapa dia mengganggu Buddha, sampai keterangan sempurna? Terus tadi juga kisah-kisahnya juga mengganggu yang mau mencapai itu. Terus siapa Mara itu? Apakah dia berkelompok atau seperti apa ya? Terus hubungannya apa dengan ajaran Buddha? Kenapa dia sering mengganggu?
So many story about the Mara. So the question is, who is Mara? Why he want to hinder the Bodhisattva attain enlightenment and also hinder the one who want to get enlightened? Bante. So is the Mara is like a group or how? And then what is the relation with the Buddha teaching? Why the Mara want to disturb the one who want to get enlightened?
Yeah, when the Mara, and when you look at the Buddhist teaching, the Mara is not the whole Mara, or the Mara means also a kind of level. Like let's say we talk about Saka. Like Saka, after doing someone of merit obviously, be then he can be a Saka, right? Then after some period later he going to pass away, he going to he want to leave that level. Then another one is coming. Okay? So in this way, like even Mar also same. Like it say like he's the chief of that the six I mean there are six Devara. The highest one we call
Paranimita.
Pramimita Vasavati, right? He is the chief of Mara is the chief of that Devara.
Jadi seperti Saka itu, kalau dia melakukan banyak kebajikan baru bisa menjadi Saka dan kemudian meninggal dan dia tidak menjadi Saka lagi dan makhluk lain yang menggantikan dia menjadi Saka. Jadi kalau Mara itu dia di level dewa yang keenam namanya Paranimita Wasawati dan dia itu ketua dari alam itu.
So it mean like when you look at the human world, Devara, I mean he's the highest one. When you look at the power of the prosperity, okay, when you look at the prosperity part, he's the highest one.
Jadi ketika kita melihat alam manusia dan alam dewa, dia adalah yang paling tinggi tingkat kemakmurannya.
So like because of that his status, he has ego. That ego caused to create some trouble.
Jadi karena statusnya yang tinggi itu menyebabkan munculnya ego dan ego tersebut yang menyebabkan masalah.
Like when someone want to attain enlightenment, when someone want to attain Buddhahood, he feel like that this person is trying to go beyond me.
Jadi ketika seseorang ingin mencapai pencerahan atau seseorang ingin mencapai kebudahan, dia merasa bahwa orang ini berusaha untuk melampaui dia.
So it caused him to give some kind of trouble.
Jadi itu menyebabkan dia berusaha melakukan masalah.
Also it say like not only him, he has some disciple, some people, some being, Deva, also around him. They also support him.
Jadi dia juga punya murid-murid yang mendukung dia.
So then they also sometimes maybe they also come and give some trouble to others. Huh?
Jadi mereka juga kadang memberikan masalah kepada orang-orang.
So anyhow, like in this world there are some kind of supportive cause and also some kind of thing always disturb our life.
Sorry.
And in this world there are all time when you look at the world, sometimes we get a lot of supportive. We get a lot of support. At the same time sometimes we get some kind of disturbance and disadvantage and some kind of problem and all these things come to our life.
Jadi di kehidupan kita bisa lihat kadang kita mendapatkan banyak dukungan, tapi kadang juga banyak hal-hal yang menghalangi kita.
So what we need to do is like we don't need to worry so much about tomorrow.
Jadi apa yang perlu kita lakukan adalah kita tidak perlu terlalu khawatir tentang Mara.
So we can try to do as much as we can try to do good thing as much as possible.
Jadi kita lakukan hal baik sebanyak yang kita bisa.
If the karma is very strong, even Mara also cannot do anything.
Ketika karma kita sangat kuat, Mara juga tidak bisa ngapa-ngapain.
Because why? The karma is something control everybody.
Jadi karma adalah hal yang mengontrol semua orang.
So even Mara, all of us are creation of karma, right?
Bahkan termasuk juga Mara dan kita semua adalah ciptaan dari karma.
So then like if we already create strong karma in our life, then we have that karma has power to overcome everything.
Jadi kalau kita sudah menanam karma yang kuat, maka karma tersebut yang akan menyebabkan semua hal.
This is the reason it's mentioned like when you go to attain enlightenment, The Mara also want to disturb him, but he was not successful. Why? He already created a very powerful karma, uncountable life, and he was focusing that in an abdomen. So when the karma ripen, then nobody can stop.
Jadi ketika Bodhisatta berusaha mencapai kebuddhaan dan Mara berusaha mengganggunya tapi tidak berhasil karena Buddha sudah mengumpulkan karma yang sangat kuat di kehidupan yang tak terhitung, dan ketika karma tersebut matang, Mara pun tak bisa menghalanginya.